I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. That my mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In the number 4 clue that we all missed, we asked the question, what happens when you literally connect the dots of the victims on GILGO Beach to the home of the suspected serial killer? Well, it looks like it's almost directly opposite the bay on the other side. If the killer went from his home, went to the nearest jetty, and crossed the bay, you're pretty much in the vicinity of where the victims were found, aren't you? The question is,
if it's so simple, why haven't you done it already?
Is it so simple? Let's find out. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, in a potentially brand sort of self-destruction thing, I know the Titanic coverage isn't what most of you are interested in. I am going to be concluding with one final report on the Titanic because I'm interested in it, even if many of you aren't. You might say it's not rocket science, it's not true crime either. Actually, there was an investigation into the Titanic, and when you dig deeper, there are a heck of a lot of shocking things that took place, not only in the construction, but also when the ship was sinking, that bordered on criminal liability. And we're going to dig into some of those details in this. I find it absolutely fascinating. We're going to look at 22 sizzling insights. I'd love you guys to bring your notebooks and write down how many of them you didn't know, and then just compare notes. And also, how many of them you did know. Let's see if there's anyone with 22 out of 22. That'll be in about 2 hours from this episode going live, but I'll put a link in the description. Otherwise, wait till the end of this video, and then you'll see the link to the live stream. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. Once again, a shout out to Brad Hardy for that cool intro. You can also hit the thanks button, and let's get started. So, do you remember in the number 3 clue we all missed, we endeavored to trace the imputed killer's route from inside the house to out? And quite interestingly, in footage, I haven't really put it up completely put it up, but someone went to the house, recorded the sun coming out and then going round to that corridor on the side, actually to get out of the view of people, people with cameras and cell phones. I haven't put that footage up just because I want to, at this stage, certainly protect the privacy of that family. Now, one of the criticisms of that scenario was that someone said, no, he would simply pull into the garage. He wouldn't go around the house. He'd simply pull his vehicle into the garage. It's not a bad counter, but to me it looked like that garage was never used. I've got a friend in Thousand Oaks, California, whose entire garage is full of wood and equipment. And I think they've got 2 or 3 vehicles. All of them are permanently parked outside. And I've got an idea that that is the case here as well. I can't prove it, except that we know Heuermann's dad made furniture, and his son seemed to be big time into working as well. Lord knows there are great piles of wood on all sides of the house. Fortunately, a friend of this channel, as I mentioned, has already provided some photo and video footage from the area. This person recently went to the sidewalk of Heuermann's home and zoomed in on that garage. Well, what happens when you do that? Well, you see that there's sort of a table that obstructs basically half of that garage. It also looks like there's a hedge that's also partially obstructing the garage. Can you believe it? The other thing that you see, because the garage is partially open, you can see to some extent inside the garage there's a fair amount of clutter, and as it happens, immediately outside as well. Incidentally, in this zoomed in picture, one can appreciate just how dilapidated, dirty, and neglected the outside of the house actually is. You actually have new beams, new wooden beams that have been put there. It appears to keep the house, that alcove, that eave, that is sort of hanging over the porch, to keep that upright. It seems like whatever was there, if anything was there, was torn out and replaced. But can you see it's very slapdash? Does a slick architect from Midtown Manhattan, whose job it is to enforce strict building codes, really live in this dump? It's an eyesore. I do find it really interesting that people were saying that house is no different from any other house. When you pay attention to it, when you really look at it, not only the house itself, but the mess surrounding it, it really does stand out compared to the neighboring properties. Now, also, there's an object that appears to be a woodworking table that has seen a lot of use partially in front of the one-car garage. I'm guessing even if the inside of the garage is the only space on the property that's not cluttered, what do you think the chances are of that? Well, you wouldn't be able to get a vehicle in there if you tried, not with that table thing in front of it and in the way. It's obviously not definitive, but the point is that I stand by my original version of the likeliest route that the suspect might have taken out of the house as described in the number 3 clue. And the whole point of that is that you don't want to at any point bring evidence, DNA or otherwise, into the house, whether it's through the garage or anywhere else. You want to use the basement as your, I guess, kill chamber. That's the theory that I'm trying to prove, put it that way. And now we're kind of getting to the substance of the number 4 clue. So first of all, you've got to accept that the number 3 clue makes sense, right? That it's from the basement area into a vehicle, right? And then the next step, the next dot that you want to join is, where does the killer go from that point? And so now we want to examine the route from the Hewerman home to the stretch of strand between Hemlock Cove and the point where the Split Ocean Parkway becomes a single ribbon running along GILGO Beach. Obviously, there's the route by car. It's barely 24 minutes, less than 21 miles. So that, in a way, makes sense. That going there by vehicle would make sense. Would it make sense to do that every single time? And the answer could be yes. But this is precisely what the investigators are going to need to find out. Did the perpetrator was his preferred route by car and then by boat? If it is by boat, bear in mind, if he goes by car and someone says, well, we saw a particular kind of vehicle there, then he implicates himself. Whereas a boat is a lot more anonymous. Boats don't really have license plates and they don't sort of stick out as much. So if it is by boat, where the heck is the preferred launching point? And I must say, I thought this was going to be very clear, very obvious. When I went onto Google Maps, I spent hours literally scratching my head, going through the labyrinth of potential launching points. And so what becomes obvious is, if you're not a local, the fabric where the land meets the sea is a very complicated, very confusing labyrinth. So while the number 4 clue we all missed is that it appears the victims are all a stone's throw across the bay, not quite directly opposite Hewerman's home, but almost, because there's a slight diagonal slant. And so, although in theory, when you look at it in a general way, you see all of these dots basically opposite the bay and opposite where Hewerman's home is, actually connecting those dots by boat is easier said than done. Now, while it seems possible, even likely, a boat was involved in transporting at least some of the victims, and the whole duck hunting thing makes that seem probable rather than simply possible. Exactly from which ramp remains a mystery. I haven't been able to figure that out. I thought it would be simple and obvious. It's not. In the Scott Peterson case, and I've written 2 books on that case, police were able to prove when and where he used the Berkeley Marina. Will that be the case in this case? Will CCTV be able to prove anything given the amount of time that is lapsed? I don't know. What do you guys think? For those of you who are friends of this channel, who are locals to the area or who live near the area, this is my assignment to you guys. Please try to find out what is the likeliest ramp based on where Heuermann lives and based on where the bodies were found, because I haven't been able to figure that out. I feel like you need to be there to figure that out. One possibility is obviously that if Heuermann often went duck hunting by boat, then again, where did he launch from? And so, who is his friend that he went duck hunting with? Does his friend own a boat, and where was that boat located? Because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior and vice versa. And so what he did recently, he may have done back in time, back during our target timeline. Does that make sense? So I'm not going to take it further than that. I do have additional clues that I want to deal with. I just need to investigate them, research them in a bit more detail. So look out for those. Again, thank you very much to Brad Hardy for the cool intro. I don't think I'm very good at doing lives. I'm definitely out of practice. So I'm actually a little bit nervous and anxious on tonight's live. Also, I know that it's really not good for my channel. You know, when you do this sort of thing, it's not, strictly speaking, true crime. I'm aware of that. But I am also a little bit out of practice doing a live. And so I'm going to do a live on something that I'm interested in, I'm curious about, and I think you guys will find it really fascinating as well. So I don't do a lot of lives, certainly not on this channel anymore. I'm going to do one now, and let's hope it goes well. So let's hold thumbs for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.